44 years ago, local preacher Fred Bales had an idea. His advertising benches have become a part of the landscape of our community. The most affordable way any small business can advertise. From that idea 44 years ago, hundreds of small businesses have gotten the exposure that they otherwise would not have had. A small business dedicated to helping other small businesses. Sadly, in January of 2021, Reverend Bales passed away, leaving behind his best friend and wife, Ida Mae. After many family discussions, their grandson was put in charge of the day-to-day operations of the business with the goal that the lion's share of the profits would benefit Mrs. Bales. One day, a Portsmouth City Council member decided to use his influence to bring the Bales family in front of the council and put forward the notion that this business was a nuisance and needed to go away. Mayor Dunn said, and I quote, "I think if you ask the majority of people in Portsmouth, they would support what you do," end quote. However, that did not deter the council, and the idea that this small business needed to be eliminated continues. We are joined today with Tyler and Brianna Bales. Tyler runs the day-to-day operations of Courtesy Advertising on behalf of his grandmother and in loving honor of his grandfather's legacy. Welcome, guys. Can you please describe your family's business, how it began and how it is now grown over the years?
Well, it's an interesting story. Over 44 years ago, my grandpa was preaching in a revival down in Columbia, North Carolina. He was down there with his kids, his wife, which was one of my dad, and that was his full-time job. That's how he provided for his family, was to be an evangelist. Well, a member of the church was getting out of a little business that he had, which was advertising benches. Well, he approached my grandpa and he sold the business to my grandpa for $87. All it came with was some molds and a couple benches. My papa hauled it all the way back down here to Friendship, Ohio, and he started a little business called Courtesy Advertising. And his very first customer was Mr. Lancaster, that owned the Magic Center Car Wash here in Portsmouth. And it started stemming off of that, and people wanted quick and affordable advertising, and he grew it into a very established business. And he always told people, advertising with him doesn't cost, it pays.
Interesting, and I remember seeing those signs that said it does not cost, it pays. So, real question, Tyler, do bench advertising campaigns actually work for your clients?
Oh my gosh, it has been amazing just to experience it in the time that I've had it. I've seen it growing up with my grandpa and how people just knew him from the advertising business. But just in a little bit of time that we've owned it, we get calls of different customers stating how much it's helped their business, how they're getting their name out there. But a lot of early starting businesses, small local businesses, have contacted us, and that's how they're getting their name out there. Different churches and even food pantries are using our affordable advertising just to get the word of their business out there. So yeah, it's working tremendously.
So how did it come to pass that after 44 years of business, you were required to answer to a government body and defend your business's legitimacy?
Well, it was brought to my attention by a family member that Joey Sandlin, councilman of the 5th Ward, I do believe, brought it to the city council meeting about a personal issue that happened with his son that involved our bench. By my understanding, his son was working out at Barbenders across the street from Mr. Sandlin's office, and a panhandler, or an individual, I should say, came up behind his son walking into his dad's business there and tried to mug him, which As far as I understand, nothing transpired from that, but it was just the fact that someone tried to mug his son, and for whatever reason, it was stated that Joey Sandlin fully believes that that happened because of our advertising bench that was sitting on the corner of his lot.
Interesting. So, the first meeting about your business lasted nearly 45 minutes. You answered questions the entire time. During the second meeting, you would have been able to delve deeper, but you weren't there. So tell us, why didn't you not attend that second meeting?
Well, after the first meeting, we did request a private meeting with the solicitor and the city manager. Me and my wife, we took our 6-month-old and went and met with the solicitor and the city manager, and we discussed some different ideas, some different thoughts. And at that point in time, we were under the understanding that something was going to be written up, something that was going to be presented to the city council that would have worked for them and for us. And it was going to be something that was going to be fair, something that we were going to be able to move forward with. So that's why we was not there, because we was advised that it was unnecessary for us to be at the next meeting from that point forward.
It's clear that several council members spoke with businesses that wanted the benches removed. How did those same businesses respond to you? And the second part of that question is it appropriate, in your opinion, for elected officials to go out and question others about your business, clients, and operations? Talk about that.
Well, first off, I want to state that I do not think it's appropriate for the city to go to customers of mine. They have my contact information and they have my phone number and email. If they had an issue that they wanted to address, like I've done before, I would have addressed it very easily, very smoothly. But I did go follow up with the businesses that they named at this last city council meeting, and to what I found out, I spoke with the exact same people that the council members spoke with, and it was a little different than what they expressed at the city council meeting. I spoke with, for example, one person stated that they wanted to know if there was any contracted permission, if they had my information of who owned the businesses of the benches, and they also said that the city wanted them to be removed. I also went to another business, and that business owner stated that they never even talked to anybody from the city. So what I found out, a lot of these business owners that I went and spoke to, not just the ones that they mentioned, but a lot of the businesses in our local area, they do not have a problem with our benches. This day and age, I think it's very clear that supporting small businesses is very important. And that is what our other local businesses are doing for us, is supporting another small local business.
In the first meeting, council members expressed an interest in kind of reshaping your business, right? There was discussion that revolved around replacing the benches with poles, adding signs that served the city, even directing users to significant landmarks. It was this whole discussion about, repurposing your business, which is, you can talk about that if you want to. But without you present, the second meeting turned and was all about safety and those businesses that said that you didn't want them there. So in your opinion, what caused the shift in viewpoints among these council members?
Yeah, I can start that one with, personally, I think what caused the shift is Joey Sandlin not letting this issue go. He is persistent about, he wants every single bench, whether it's on private property or city property, removed out of the city. And, when you're on a board with other people and you consistently, day after day after day, keep presenting this issue, eventually somebody else is gonna jump on board. And not only that, I mean, he is also adding new issues. First, it started out with, oh, it's about panhandlers. And now he's switching to, oh no, it's about safety. And at one point in time, it was cleanliness and the trash. So he just continues to come up with a new reason. And I think some of these reasons that he's pointing out are causing other members to jump on board. All the points that he is bringing up are with the safety and the cleanliness and panhandlers. Some of the other city council members are jumping on board with that. They spoke about someone tripping and possibly being impelled. Of course, when you present an issue like that, yes, that's gonna alarm you and be like, okay, maybe this is a safety issue.
Impalement is a pretty dramatic word to use in a
Absolutely,
government
yeah.
meeting.
Yes, yeah. And, we went around and we did look at benches, and there is nothing that anyone could be impelled on. If there had been, it has been fixed. So, but back to the original question, that is why we think that some of them are shifting, is because he is just relentless in over and over just repeating the same thing. He wants them gone.
Well, I spoke with the clerk, Diana Ratcliffe, and she stated that this has been drug out close to 6 to 8 weeks now. I think by this point, I think anybody would like to just come up with an agreement and move on with their lives. And unfortunately, we're getting the bad end of the stick because it's easier to say they don't want something.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, a lot of small businesses are being affected by taking the easy way out.
Is there a reason why you guys didn't repair the benches that were brought up in the first council meeting?
Absolutely. So, again, if you've seen this past council meeting, trying to pass to remove all benches, why would anybody want to go spend a bunch of money, thousands of dollars, to replace things in the business, to do maintenance, if they're just going to take them away?
And we did, right after that first original meeting, him and his employee, they went around and they did do some maintenance on some of them. However, now we're discovering that there's over 50 benches within the city limits, and you have to think financially, we're not able to do maintenance and update 50 benches within a month. So yes, they went out and they did maintenance to some of them, but they have to understand that's going to take some time. And we focused on the ones that could have been a safety hazard. We did meet with the engineer in private, and he reviewed some things with him, and everything to him was up to par. So, from our stance, as long as we're making sure they're safe, and if we're clear with the engineer, what other maintenance do they want us to do? We can't spend thousands of dollars. Again, we're a small business, so within 4-week period, you can't spend $10,000 trying to fix something that ultimately Joey Sandlin's goal was to get rid of. So not only would we be out all the future business that we're going to have, plus reimbursing anybody's business advertising that gets taken down and their contracts aren't finished out, but then we would have the $10,000 or however much it would end up costing us in replacing and fixing all the ones that they want maintained or up to their standards.
So a concern was raised that your company was not properly insured to hold the city harmless in the event of an accident. So talk about that.
Yes, so of course, just like I would imagine every other business, we have liability insurance, and specifically within our policy, the city of Portsmouth is listed on that insurance so that, God forbid, there ever be an accident, the city of Portsmouth is not held liable for anything, as well as any private property owners. Same thing for them. If anything were to happen and we have a bench on their property, the liability falls on us. And you know, unfortunately, that's one thing during this last meeting, they kind of had a negative light shown that the business, all these private businesses would have responsibility for that, and that is not the case at all. Everyone would be protected because it would all fall back on us.
And their big thing was they needed the city to be held harmless in the wording of your insurance policy.
Yes.
Is that wording there?
Yes, that is listed within our policy.
So while we're talking about paperwork, another thing they came up with, so let me ask you just point blank, kind of put you on the spot.
Absolutely.
Do you have contracts that you can show with the actual private property owners?
We do. We have lots of contracts here. And one thing that we did not turn over to the city was these contracts because, quite frankly, any contracts that we have with any private business owners or private landowners is not the city's business. So they have no right to those contracts. Now, one thing that they have repeatedly asked for, which has been made very apparent, is a contract between our business and the city, and there isn't one. And that is what part of this is trying to come up with a contract. And we're willing to do that, but we keep like not getting any feedback from them with that. They're just wanting to just flat out ban all of the benches. But yet, again, in this last meeting, they pointed out, oh, well, we asked them for a contract. Have they brought you that? And they said, no, they have not. Well, of course we haven't. There isn't one. They're supposed to be working to get that with us, but nobody's doing anything about it.
And I want to make very clear too, in the very beginning, the very first meeting that we met at, the city council made it very clear that they didn't know whether or not there was a contract between my grandfather and the city. And if I can remember right, one of the city council workers made the comment that it's a mess in that department. So, Mark, frankly, there could have been a contract between my grandpa and the city. It just can't be found. Now, whether or not there was or there isn't, I can't answer that. But the one thing that we are fighting for is an agreement or contract with the city, and they can't come up with one other than to prohibit all the benches.
A part of a contract is, of course, a negotiation, right? A give and take, right? There's not been a conversation outside of the public forum as far as, correct me if I'm wrong here, but to even begin the contract phase, you haven't had that conversation. Nobody's invited you to sit down and begin to work on an agreement. Is that right or wrong?
So, partially right and wrong. So we did have that meeting in private with the solicitor and city manager, and we had spoke about getting that contract into place. And part of what they were going to present to the city council was that we are more than willing to remove them off of city property. No big deal. However, we would really like to keep them on city property because some of our businesses that have advertising have those benches there. So we presented the idea of possibly offering the city free advertising for city events on some of those benches, basically in trade that they would allow us to keep those benches on the city property so that we could have, you know, our other businesses still have the advertising there, plus the city could advertise for whatever they want for free. And to our understanding, that was supposed to be presented to the council. Does not look like it was presented to the council. I don't know, and I don't want to put blame on anybody of where the miscommunication happened, but there was clearly some miscommunication there. We were under the understanding that that would take place, and it did not.
I actually have a picture of one of the possibilities of helping the city out. If we could have came up with an agreement, we stated that we would be more than willing to help Portsmouth thrive because that's what our business does. But this picture right here was one of the ideas that we would have liked to have been involved in to help this, just one of many, get the word out. But I guess that wasn't something that they were interested in. Now, I do want to make very, very clear that Mr. Hass and Sutherland has been outstanding. They have tried to work with us. No contract has not been written up yet or presented, but they have been on our side. Diana Ratcliffe has been on our side. And we do want to tell you how much we appreciate that. But other than that, I mean...
Did you mention the city engineer?
The city engineer, I'm sorry that I don't remember his name, but he was very helpful in some of our discoveries with the benches. Yes.
Did you talk to New Boston? Is this a problem in New Boston too?
Absolutely not. We spoke with their engineer. Very, very easy. Very, very easy to talk to, and very smooth. It was straight to the point. Mark, it took us one day to get everything worked out with New Boston as being the new owners of the business, because they only knew of my papaw, and they said that my papaw left a great influence on them, on the city of or the village of New Boston. So yeah, it was easy with New Boston, and it's been pretty easy in our other locations as well.
The format of the next meeting of council is going to be different. Question and answer time is over. A 5-minute statement will be allowed. In your opinion, what are the 3 most critical bullet points that the public should be aware of?
So, I think that first and foremost, number 1 would be that if they would happen to ban every bench in the city, they would be stripping away affordable advertising for all of the local small businesses. The second thing is that they are also stripping away income from an 83-year-old woman who depends on this monthly income to survive. And it seems like no matter how many times we pointed that out, they just completely overlook it, which I think is just atrocious, but personal opinion probably there. My third point would be, this was a personal issue brought to City Council by Joey Sandlin, and from what we know, they're not supposed to bring personal issues to the City Council to even speak about at all. So, and as we said before, the personal issue was that a panhandler or individual, whoever he was sleeping on that bench on his property, and nearly mugged his son. Nothing resulted out of the situation. So, but his whole point was that maybe that would not have happened if the bench wasn't sitting there, because therefore the panhandler would have never been there. So, just so happened we were driving through Portsmouth yesterday, and this panhandler, I think it might have even been the same one, was still sitting on his corner lot there on what I think is an electrical box. So,
What?
yes, still sitting there. So, if this is not a personal issue, as he claims it's not personal, I believe it is personal, is he going to start campaigning to have electrical boxes and poles removed within the city? I mean, that's his whole point with these benches, so what's his next move? Who else is he going to attack after this?
So the plan that the bench caused the homeless person to sit there, so you remove the bench,
We removed it
and that fixed the
immediately.
homeless person problem?
Apparently not. So I think that kind of blows his first thought there out of the water, because that is not fixing this problem that he thinks. I think he said it several times in the meetings that they attract trash and panhandlers, when, I mean, anybody with 2 cents should know that that is not what attracts them. They're going to go and sit wherever they want to go. They bring their milk crates, they bring their lawn chairs, has nothing to do with our benches.
I just had a thought. If you go anywhere with dumpsters, Save-A-Lot comes to mind.
Yeah.
You're familiar, you've got a bench there by Little Caesars. You go to Save-A-Lot, there's always people hanging out at dumpsters doing all kinds of things.
Yes.
We want to ban dumpsters?
Absolutely, that's another good point. I mean, there's even healthcare facilities that have dumpsters, right beside their buildings, covered in trash, and guess what? The panhandlers and maybe some homeless individuals go by there and they hang out because unfortunately, they want to dig through them and see what they can find.
So, do you think it's personal? I mean, really, do you think this is a personal issue? Because 44 years, no problem. Now this. Is this personal?
Mark, I think it is. 100%. In the first meeting, we kept hearing my property from Joey Sandlin, a bench on my property. The bench on my property that I have to go out and clean trash up because of the panhandlers sitting there and sleeping on. After the meeting with the engineer, we found out the bench there was not on his property. So at what point in time does somebody continue to push an issue when, in all honesty, it doesn't pertain to them? He has pushed this, and he continued to say, when we had our support people there, I think he kind of wanted to make it look good, but he kept saying, I promise I support small businesses. I am pro business. You're attacking a small business, and we're going to say it again, attacking a small business that provides affordable advertising to a lot of other local businesses. Not only businesses, Mark, churches, rehabs, counseling centers. We have food pantries. Medical offices, exactly. When do we just look at this and say, this is ludicrous? You can't, if you get on the city council website, you can look at the different city council and they have details under their names. A few of them that are against us state right in there, want to see small businesses thrive, mindfulness of businesses. How can you be for small businesses and to see Portsmouth thrive when one of the only businesses that do what we do, that's what you're going to attack? So yes, Mark, 100% personal, and I have made it personal because not only are you attacking the small businesses and our businesses, but you're attacking the legacy of my papaw, and I don't appreciate it.
I'm going to circle back because you said something that kind of struck me. The bench on Joey Sandler's property was not his property?
No.
Talk about that. I mean, I saw it all the time. It was sitting right there at the corner, not Joey Sandler's property.
You can get on the website where it shows the property lines, and it states right on there, State of Ohio property. It comes in so far that clearly covered the area that our bench sat on. So it was not his property. Now, he may have to maintain it, but technically, it is not his property.
So, as we wrap this up, please share your final thoughts about the process, the fact that it's even been an issue now after 44 years, and tell us about the impact on your family, the customers, and your hope for a fair resolution.
Quite frankly, it has been exhausting for us for the last month and a half. As he had mentioned in that first city council meeting, we have other jobs. This is not, the bench business is not our full-time job. He has a full-time job and owns another business. I run a pediatric office. We are exhausted all the time, and for this to, you know, we want to try so hard to save this, and you know, we were talking the other day and we were kind of like, at what point in time does this become harassment from these city council members? You know, when does this stop, and at what point in time should we possibly take legal action against what they're doing to our business, or what they could potentially cause to our business? You know,
Not
Is
only
it-
to our business, but to other people's businesses
Yeah.
as well.
You know, is it really okay for them to go into private businesses and reflect a negative light towards our benches, possibly coercing people to say, oh, you know what, the city wants them removed, so sure, why don't we just remove them? You know, and then the next day, you know, Wade goes and talks to the same people and they say something completely opposite. So at what point in time does this stop, and when is it getting too far?
So you heard from the Bales. In addition to that, I wanted to bring out that during that second council meeting, Mayor Dunn cited a ordinance about benches in Harper's Ferry, and he called it was 709. And he asked folks, please look at this ordinance 709 for Harper's Ferry. So I did. Honest mistake, 709 is the Portsmouth ordinance. We'll talk about that in a second. Harper's Ferry is 1360. But here's what the Harper's Ferry, I put some bullet points here. The Harper's Ferry ordinance says that the mayor was so adamant that everybody read and even potentially copy and paste. Here it is. Signs are to consist of flat panels made of natural materials such as wood, metal, or stone. Check. Signs shall not exceed 6 feet. Check. The sign and location of all existing, the size and location of all existing signs must be provided. I don't think they're going, you guys got a problem with that?
No.
No
we'll
problem.
Provide it when it's.
All right,
when
that's
due
cool.
time.
Finally, the ordinance compliance officer, which here would be Andy Gideon, may order maintenance as deemed appropriate, and if an order to conduct maintenance is not followed within 30 days of such order coming into force, it shall be considered a violation of the zoning ordinance. That's what the Harper's Ferry ordinance says. And two things they are doing. The letting them know the size and location, that's easy. They already have it. And having somebody say, you know, compliance officer, Andy Gideon, say, hey, this needs maintenance, and giving them 30 days to do it. Now remember, they were given 30 days to do several benches, right? And in this case, what is it? 50?
Over
They wanted to do over 50 benches in a month. And this ordinance, Harper's Ferry, that was mentioned in the thing, I'm not just pulling stuff out of my, this says per bench, 30 days, per bench. Now, final thing. Mayor Dunn said ordinance 709. He thought it was Harper's Ferry, but it was actually Portsmouth ordinance 709. There is already an ordinance on the books about benches. It says no benches on city property. Okay? That's it. That's what it says. Nothing about permits, nothing about add our stuff to it, nothing about fees, nothing about anything. It just says none on city property. The first bench that caused this problem wasn't even on city property, it was on state property. So the ordinance is already there. What they're trying to pass is senseless because there's already an ordinance. That's why you see in the meetings when you look at it, John Hash throwing his arms in the air and say, I don't even know why I come to these things, because there's already an ordinance. They're trying to write a new law over top of another law. And the thing, now listen, this is important. The part about the benches on city property happened in 2016. This business is 44 years old. Up until 2016, they added the part about the benches. They never contacted the Bales family. Never contacted the Bales family. And if you're going to add something, and then somebody's not compliant, a compliance officer could have called you, Andy Gideon could have called you, anybody, nobody notified. You know when they found out? When I showed them the ordinance, and I showed them the date that it was added. Thank you for watching Southern County Daily News, the People's News. Have a good night.